Can I ask you something a little personal? Have you ever sat down to enjoy your breakfast, maybe with a hot cup of coffee and a slice of bacon, only to forget why you walked into the kitchen an hour later? You might laugh it off. You might say, it's just age, right? But what if I told you that what you put on your plate each morning could quietly increase your risk of memory loss, brain fog, even a stroke? I'm not here to scare you. I'm here because after 30 years as a brain doctor, I've seen what can happen when no one tells you the truth early enough. Did you know that, according to Harvard Health Publishing, diets high in processed meats have been linked to inflammation that damages tiny blood vessels in the brain? It's a silent process, and it often begins long before symptoms show up. And the food that seems most harmless, the one we trust, enjoy, even grew up with, could be making things worse. If you're over 60 and you care about your independence, your memory, or even just staying sharp enough to drive safely, this might be the most important video you watch all year, because you're not powerless. There's something you can start doing tomorrow morning. And no, it doesn't involve giving up everything you love. It just means learning how to choose differently. So let me ask you right now, have you ever felt your memory slipping? Just a little. Drop a yes in the comments if that sounds like you. Or type no if you're still feeling sharp. I'd love to know. Now, let's talk about the one food that might be quietly aging your brain and what you can eat instead. Number 1, the comfort food we love, but our brain might not. Let me tell you about Frank. Frank is 72. He's a retired mechanic from Ohio, proud of his workshop and his independence. Every morning, he'd make the same breakfast he's had since he was a boy. 2 strips of bacon, white toast with butter, and a hot mug of black coffee. It's how I start my day, he told me once, chuckling. And Doc, it's not like I'm eating cake for breakfast. But one morning, Frank stood in the garage and couldn't remember why he was holding his car keys. Now here's the thing. Frank doesn't have Alzheimer's. Not yet. But that small moment, that mental blank, was a red flag. And the truth is, it had been building up for years. According to a 2023 review published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, diets high in processed meats like bacon and sausage are linked to a 44% higher risk of developing cognitive decline over time. Why? Because these meats often contain high amounts of sodium, nitrates, and preservatives that promote chronic inflammation in the brain. Over time, that inflammation interferes with blood flow, starving your brain of oxygen and nutrients. Think of it like this. If your brain were a garden, processed meats are like pouring gasoline on dry grass. It doesn't burn right away, but the damage builds until one spark sets it off. What's more, research from Harvard's Chan School of Public Health shows that older adults who follow high sodium, low antioxidant diets are more likely to suffer memory loss and even small strokes called silent infarcts, injuries that damage brain tissue without obvious symptoms. And yet, we keep eating these comfort foods, not because we don't care, but because they're tied to memory, family, identity. I get it. Food is emotional, but if that food is stealing your sharpness, if it's robbing you of your independence, your confidence, is it still worth holding on to? Frank made a shift. Now, 3 days a week. He swaps bacon for sautéed spinach and eggs with turmeric. He adds blueberries, too. And within 2 months, he told me, Doc, I don't know if it's the food or the feeling, but I've got more pep in my step. So let me ask you, What's one food from your daily routine you've always assumed was harmless? Type it in the comments and let's see if it's helping your brain or hurting it. Your comfort food might be warming your heart, but it slowly chills your brain. Number 2, how red and processed meat impacts brain health after 60. Now, let's take a quiet moment to understand what's actually happening inside your brain. When you keep eating red or processed meats after 60, I know it may feel like just another breakfast, but inside your body something very different is going on. Red meats like beef, lamb, and pork are high in saturated fat and something called heme iron. Processed meats like bacon, sausage, and deli cuts are often loaded with sodium, preservatives, and nitrites. Now, the problem is not just about cholesterol or blood pressure. It's deeper than that. We're talking about inflammation inside the brain. According to a report from the National Institutes of Health, chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the leading causes of neurodegeneration, the slow breakdown of brain cells that leads to memory loss and diseases like Alzheimer's. So what causes that inflammation? When you eat meats that are high in sodium and processed chemicals, your blood vessels, especially the tiny ones in your brain, begin to stiffen. This restricts oxygen and nutrient flow. Your brain is only about 3 pounds in weight, but it uses around 20% of your body's oxygen. It cannot afford poor circulation. And over time, that poor circulation leads to what we call silent brain injuries. Tiny, undetectable damages that slowly chip away at memory, reaction time, and clarity. Researchers at Tufts University found that older adults who ate more than 2 servings of processed meats per week had significantly more brain atrophy. That means shrinkage in areas responsible for decision-making and recall. Let me put it simply. You may feel fine right now, but the damage doesn't always show up in headaches or pain. Sometimes it shows up when you forget a name you used to remember easily. When it takes a little longer to follow a conversation, driving at night feels just a bit harder than it used to, and that's what makes it dangerous. It's silent. You won't feel inflammation in your brain. But over the years, it steals from you, quietly and without warning. Now, I'm not saying you have to cut out all meat forever. That's not realistic. But what I'm asking is someone who's seen the inside of thousands of aging brains, it is to think carefully about what you eat and what it may be doing. Not just to your body, but to your mind. Would you be open to trading 1 or 2 of those high sodium meats each week for something that supports your brain instead? Because the changes don't have to be big, but they do have to begin. So before we go further, what processed meat do you eat most often? Bacon, sausage, salami, ham. Go ahead and write it in the comments. Let's look at it together. Number 3, the mind diet. A doctor's perspective on what truly feeds your brain. Let's take a deep breath here, because this isn't about fear. It's about clarity. After 3 decades of listening to patients, scanning brains, and watching cognitive changes unfold, I've learned something important. What we feed our brain matters. And just like the wrong foods can speed up decline, the right ones can slow it down, even reverse some of the early damage. That's where the mind diet comes in. The mind diet stands for Mediterranean-Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. It was developed by researchers at Rush University Medical Center and supported by the National Institute on Aging. It's not just a trendy eating plan. It's based on solid neuroscience. In fact, one major study published in Alzheimer's and Dementia, the Journal of the Alzheimer's Association, showed that people who followed the mind diet closely had up to 53% lower risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. And even those who followed it moderately still saw about a 35% reduction in risk. Now let's break that down simply. The MIND diet emphasizes leafy green vegetables like spinach and kale, berries, especially blueberries and strawberries, whole grains, nuts and seeds, fatty fish like salmon or sardines, olive oil as the primary cooking fat, beans and legumes, poultry, not red meat, wine in moderation, no more than 1 glass per day, if at all, and it strongly limits red meats and processed meats, butter and margarine, cheese, fried or fast foods, pastries, and sweets. The goal isn't perfection. It's about stacking your plate with more of the good and less of the harm. Why do leafy greens matter? Because they're rich in folate, vitamin K, and antioxidants, nutrients that support neuroplasticity and help your brain form new connections. Why berries? Because they contain flavonoids that reduce oxidative stress, a key driver in brain aging. And why olive oil? Because it's anti-inflammatory, heart protective, and supports healthy cholesterol, all critical for keeping blood vessels in the brain clear and open. When you eat this way consistently, even just 5 days a week, you start to create a kind of shield around your brain. I like to call it your brain's daily armor. And no, you don't have to cook like a chef. You don't need exotic ingredients. You just need intention. If all you did was swap butter for olive oil and add 1 handful of blueberries each morning, you'd already be moving in the right direction. The MIND diet isn't a punishment, it's a gift. It's something you give your future self. So let me ask you gently, what's one healthy brain food you already enjoy? Is it berries? Is it nuts? Is it leafy greens? Type it in the comments. Let's celebrate those choices together, because you're not just feeding your body. You're nourishing your memory. You're protecting your brain before it needs saving. Number 4, why inflammation is the real brain killer and where it hides in your diet. Let's talk about the real villain here. Not aging, not forgetfulness, but something far more subtle, something invisible. It's called chronic inflammation. Unlike a fever or an injury where your body fights, heals, and rests, chronic inflammation is a slow burn. It doesn't scream. It whispers. And the damage it causes builds up silently. Inside your brain, inflammation behaves like a fog. It clouds your focus, slows down the way your neurons communicate, and over time, it can actually damage brain tissue, making it harder to form new memories, stay alert, or process thoughts clearly. But here's the thing. Most people don't know. Inflammation doesn't always start in the brain. It often begins in the gut. What you eat can trigger a chain reaction. According to a 2022 article from Harvard Health, diets high in ultra-processed foods, things like white bread, frozen meals, pastries, and soda flood the body with sugar, salt, and chemicals that activate the body's immune system unnecessarily. That immune system, when constantly provoked, begins attacking healthy cells, including brain cells. Now, here's where it gets even more important. Fatty red meats and processed meats, especially those preserved with nitrates and nitrites, are among the worst offenders. They create compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. These AGEs are known to promote oxidative stress, a key trigger for brain inflammation. In simpler terms, it's like adding smoke to a room that's already low on oxygen. Your brain, already working hard to stay sharp after 60 now, has to fight through that smoke every day. And that smoke doesn't just cloud memory, it raises your risk for depression, anxiety, and stroke. In fact, the American Heart Association confirms that chronic inflammation is closely linked to stroke and cognitive decline in aging adults. But here's the part I want you to remember. Inflammation is not destiny. It's a signal. It's your body saying, something in your routine is hurting me. Please pay attention. You can calm that signal. How? By eating foods that fight inflammation like leafy greens, berries, turmeric, walnuts, and fatty fish. By cutting down on things that stoke the fire like sausage, deli meat, deep fried snacks, and soda. Even small changes matter. Replacing one food, drinking one extra glass of water, giving your brain one less reason to struggle. So let me ask you, have you ever felt mentally foggy after a heavy meal? Have you noticed your energy dip, your thinking slow down? If that's ever happened to you, type yes in the comments. If not, type no and tell us what helps you feel clear-headed. Your brain is wise. And inflammation is only a messenger, but it's one you shouldn't ignore. Number 5, swap smart. What to eat instead. Without losing the joy of food, here's the part many people worry about, and I get it. Doc, I know what not to eat, but what can I eat instead that still tastes good? You're not alone. Because food isn't just fuel. It's comfort. It's tradition. It's love. So let's not talk about restrictions. Let's talk about smart swaps. Let's protect your brain without punishing your taste buds. Let's start with breakfast, the most personal meal of the day. If you're used to sausage or bacon, try replacing it just 2 or 3 mornings a week with scrambled eggs, sautéed spinach, and a pinch of turmeric. Turmeric is a natural anti-inflammatory. And eggs give you choline, a key nutrient for memory. Love toast. Choose whole grain instead of white bread. Top it with a drizzle of olive oil, avocado, or a few crushed walnuts. Those healthy fats support brain cell membranes, helping your neurons fire smoothly. Craving something sweet? Try a handful of blueberries or strawberries. Not only are they delicious, they're also packed with flavonoids that fight oxidative stress in the brain. Now let's move to lunch or dinner. Instead of deli meat sandwiches, how about grilled chicken breast with roasted vegetables? Or lentil soup with a slice of rye bread? Beans and legumes are rich in fiber, protein, and plant compounds that support brain health. And when you want something hearty, maybe a meatloaf or stew. Try ground turkey or plant-based proteins instead of beef. Want a snack? Grab a small handful of almonds or pumpkin seeds. And if you need something cold and comforting, Greek yogurt with cinnamon and chia seeds can feel like dessert, but it's healing from the inside out. These swaps are simple. And no, you don't have to do them all at once. You don't need to become a new person overnight. You just need to start choosing like someone who knows their brain matters. Think of each choice not as losing a food, but as giving your brain one more tool to stay sharp. Because here's the beautiful truth. The foods that heal the brain also heal the heart. They stabilize blood sugar, lower cholesterol, ease joint pain, and even improve sleep. So with every bite, you're not just eating. You're building strength. You're investing in your independence. Let me ask you gently, which of these swaps feels easiest for you to try this week? Is it trading toast, skipping the sausage, adding blueberries? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you've made a brain-healthy swap before, tell us how it went. Your small choice might inspire someone else, because change doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be real. And it starts one plate at a time. Number 6, mistakes to avoid. 3 myths about protein and brain health. Let me pause here, because this next part might challenge something you've believed for years. When I talk to older patients about cutting back on red meat or processed protein, I often get the same question.
But, Doc, I need my protein, don't I? Yes, you absolutely do. Protein is essential for muscle repair, hormone balance, and yes, even brain health. But here's where the confusion begins. Myth. Number 1. Only red meat gives you real strength. This is simply not true. You can get high-quality protein from eggs, fish, beans, lentils, tofu, nuts, and seeds without the inflammation, saturated fat, and chemical additives found in red or processed meats. In fact, according to Harvard Health Publishing, people over 60 who replace red meat with plant-based proteins show better metabolic health, lower blood pressure, and improved brain circulation.
Think of it this way. You don't need a steak to stay strong. You need the right fuel, at the right time, in the right amount. Myth number 2. If I stop eating meat, I'll get weak or lose muscle. I understand the fear. After all, we've been told for decades that meat equals muscle. But let me tell you what science says. A 2021 review published in the journal Nutrients showed that older adults who ate at least 0.6 to 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight per day, even from plant sources, maintained muscle mass as effectively as those eating animal proteins. It's not about meat, it's about consistency and variety. Add lentils to your soup, snack on almonds, toss quinoa into your salad. Your muscles and your brain will thank you. Myth number 3. I eat meat for iron to prevent fatigue. Yes, red meat contains hammy iron, which your body absorbs easily. But here's the catch. Too much hammy iron, especially from processed meats, has been linked to increased oxidative stress in the brain. That means more inflammation and more risk of cognitive decline. You can get iron from leafy greens, beans, pumpkin seeds, and fortified cereals without triggering that stress response. Plus, pairing plant-based iron with vitamin C like citrus, tomatoes, or bell peppers helps your body absorb it even better. So no, meat is not your only ticket to energy. Balanced nutrition is now. Why does all this matter for your brain? Because when we cling to outdated beliefs, we block ourselves from healing. We stay stuck in habits that feel safe but quietly harm us. But when we're open to learning, even in our 60s, 70s, or 80s, that's when transformation begins.
So let me ask you this. Which of these 3 myths have you heard most often? Was it the red meat equals strength? Was it the fear of losing muscle? Or was it the idea that meat gives you energy? Type the one that sounds most familiar in the comments. And if you've ever overcome one of these myths yourself, share how it changed your health. Because this isn't about blame, it's about breaking free. And freeing your brain starts with freeing your plate. Number 7, tiny changes. Big results. How to transition without stress. Let me offer you some peace of mind. You don't need to change everything. You don't need to throw away your pantry or swear off every food you love. What your brain needs is progress, not perfection. You see, in the medical world, we've learned something powerful. Small, consistent changes create the biggest impact. And when it comes to your brain, to your memory, clarity, and focus, even one small improvement in your daily meals can shift the way your neurons fire. So how do you begin? Start with one meal. Pick either breakfast, lunch, or dinner. The one that feels easiest to adjust. Then choose just one thing to swap. If you eat bacon every morning, try doing it only 3 days a week. If white toast is your go-to, try a whole grain version topped with nut butter. If you usually skip veggies, try adding just a handful of spinach or some steamed carrots. You're not taking something away.
You're giving your brain support. Next, add color. That's right. The more colors on your plate, the more nutrients your brain gets. Think deep greens, bright reds, blues, oranges, berries, leafy vegetables, bell peppers, sweet potatoes. They all feed your brain in different ways. And here's something I often remind my patients. Food habits are emotional. They're tied to our childhood, our family, our comfort. So don't rush and don't beat yourself up if you slip back for a day or two. Progress isn't linear, it's human. That's why I recommend the 3-3-3 rule. Start by making 3 brain-friendly swaps this week, repeat those 3 next week, and by week 3, add 3 new ones. It keeps your momentum without stress. It gives your brain time to adjust. And it makes the process feel manageable. You're not dieting. You're deciding. You're choosing a path where your brain gets stronger, not just older. And you're doing it with care, with wisdom, with self-respect. So here's your invitation. This week, pick one swap, just one. Write it in the comments and let this be your first declaration. I'm choosing to support my brain, and if you need inspiration, scroll down and read what others have written. Let this space be a community, a reminder that you're not doing this alone. Because the path to a healthier brain doesn't begin with fear. It begins with one plate, one choice, one promise to yourself. Take a deep breath. You've made it this far. Not everyone does. Because facing these truths about food, about memory, about aging isn't always easy. But here you are, still listening, still curious, still choosing to protect your brain before it needs saving. And that's powerful. Let me tell you something most people forget. Your brain is not your enemy. It's your partner. It stores every story, every smile, every moment you've ever loved. And it's listening to you every time you eat, every time you rest, every time you choose not what's easy, but what's right. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. Your brain remembers how you care for it. And in return, it will try to carry you farther, longer, brighter. So don't wait for the memory lapses, Bill. Don't wait for the confusion. Don't wait until you're asking yourself, why didn't I do something sooner? You've already started with awareness, with attention, with a single plate. Now, what comes next? If today's video resonated with you, I invite you to join me in the next episode, where we go even deeper. What do we know about diet and prevention of Alzheimer's disease? We'll break down the most recent scientific findings. Talk about what's fact, what's still being studied, and what steps you can take today to protect yourself and your loved ones. Because knowledge is power, and prevention is a kind of love.
So, before you go, answer me this. What's one food habit you're ready to shift starting this week? Type it in the comments. Let this be your promise. To your brain, to your future. And if this video spoke to you, please like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so we can walk this journey together. One step, one meal, one and stronger brain at a time.